back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. Robert Johnson is here from Capsule Consultants. Robert is a startup founder, product developer, keynote speaker, seasoned expert in navigating emerging markets. He's a cannabis and hemp industry veteran and CEO of supplement manufacturer Capsule Consultants. He's founder of MicroBoost, which is a functional mushroom product line. So we are going to find out today about some secrets of entrepreneurship and business success, merging business with health innovation, emerging markets, and so much more. So, Robert, wonderful name and nice meeting you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Robert. Excited to be on and talk to you today.
All right, I'm excited too. And so we kind of introduced you, hyped you up, and in your own words, what's your current focus and passion?
Well, my passion is really about plant medicine, and my whole career I've been working in these emerging markets, often with plants that have been long maligned and banned, and a lot of disinformation around them. And my goal at Custom Capsules and every company I've ever founded in this space is, if you want to call something plant medicine, then it really should be measured and dosed like medicine. In that it should be predictable, consistent, and you're going to know what you're getting. So that's what we're all about. And with different plants, they have different potencies, different amounts of actives, and so traditionally these things are used in ceremonies or used by people for thousands of years. But now we have the science to really measure whether it's the THC in cannabis or the psilocybin in mushrooms or the metrogenine and kratom. We want to have precise dosing so people really know what they get, because one thing that can happen with plant medicine, in my experience, is people take too much or just something that's not right for them, and then have kind of like a negative experience that they take away from it. And not all plant medicine or any medicine's right for everyone, but I just want people to have the best possible experience with it so they don't miss out on something that could really benefit them.
I like this philosophy a lot. This some of these ideas that it's another possible path, right? It's a alternative medicine, and that there's this kind of recent revolution and need to make it more scientific and measured. And I think it helps to have some awareness on the subject, because it's easy to be stuck in these old ways of thinking, right? To say like, oh, well, that's like hippie stuff, or that's like criminal stuff. But then you also think about how just I read something a few years ago that like alcohol has no medicinal like value to it. And then there's also kind of, you hear here and there about like the kind of the dangers of like the prescription medicine, how like that can be abused. And so it's good that there's this kind of other category. But do you find it difficult with the messaging to kind of overcome the, I don't know, the shadiness of it, just as far as the public perception?
Yeah, I mean, if we were talking about 60 years ago, that was definitely a big obstacle to overcome. But I think the public perception has really been changing, and the legalization of cannabis was really I think a gateway drug, if you will, for this sort of change in thought, where I'm really inspired. And the reason why I stay in this industry is that cannabis legalization, I think, for our generation is like one of the biggest acts of activism. It wasn't the government that decided that we should have cannabis legal. In fact, they're the ones who kept it illegal for so long. But small local groups and then states groups rallied behind this belief that we should have access to this medicine, that it's not bad for you, especially when you're comparing it to something like alcohol and pharmaceuticals. And so one by one, on a local level and a state level, we now have over 40 states in the US that have legal cannabis, either for medical or recreational use. And I think that's kind of open people's minds to the idea of maybe the the rhetoric that we've been hearing about these things has been wrong. So what else have they been telling us that that might not be true? And then also too, I think just public distrust of pharmaceutical companies has continued to be on the rise in the past few years with the COVID-19 pandemic. I think not only is there some skepticism of pharmaceutical companies, but all of us were really forced to be inside and kind of take a pause from our life, which I think for a lot of people gave us all time to reflect and really kind of re-examine our values and what's important to us. And I think that plant medicine can be a really powerful tool to help us sort of reevaluate what is important to us, and to explore an inner journey as well, right? Not only just looking for outside stimulation or consumerism or identifying with being at a job, or whatever it is that everybody kind of just like had to start over and rethink it. So that's that is something that is a gradual change, but I think that the momentum keeps happening, and every year there's more public approval that cannabis should at least not be criminalized. People shouldn't be charged for it. Whether or not everyone wants to smoke it or not is a personal decision. But I think more and more every year people are coming around to the idea that these things are plants. By the way, right? They're put here by God, if that's what you believe in, or the universe, and so maybe there's a reason for it.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, I think you're so right of the need to change the channel, change your perspective, whether it's with drugs or not, right? I mean, even some people do like mindfulness meditation to get there, just to say like, hey, well, like, what am I doing? How did I get here? Am I on the right path, the right track? Like, it helps to re-examine and kind of make sure that you're mentally healthy. And I think you're so right too, as far as the legalization, like when that, I'm in California, and when that first happened, there was all this rhetoric of like, oh well, crime's going to just go way up in any part of town where where there's a dispensary. It's going to stink. There's going to be all the riffraff, and guess what? None of that happened. If anything, they got the extra tax revenue from that. So it's like you said, it's fun how there's what people expect, and then you try out these little experiments in small areas, and it's like, hey, it's there's actually a benefit to this, and of course there's the need to be responsible and all of that. And so in all of the industries, the niches that you could build a business in, why this space? Because it seems like there's always changing, seems competitive, seems very regulated, a lot to navigate. So why is your passion this kind of plant medicine?
Well, you're right. It's never a dull moment, and the industry changes so fast. I feel like every 6 months, it's like the equivalent of a couple of years in a more established industry. But the main inspiration for me is the community, and as an entrepreneur too, I'm always kind of re-examining things and looking at the ways that things have been done before. And one thing that I never subscribed to is that we should continue doing things in a certain way only because that's the way it's always been done before. And so I like the idea of people thinking for themselves, going against the odds, despite the regulatory hurdles and old way of thinking that we're continuing to push up against. And so I think like it really is an extreme version of an entrepreneur. I heard Gary Vaynerchuk compare entrepreneurism to boxing recently, meaning that if you're going to go out there, like, you're going to get punched in the face a lot. And it really takes a certain kind of person that is so driven to win that boxing match that they're willing to continuously take those hard hits to the face. And so I think that it's just an opportunity for me and so many people with really strong beliefs to really stand up for something that they believe in, and build a community of like-minded people. And I think when I first got into mushrooms, right, I was in cannabis for 10 years and really was so involved in the activism and changing the laws in California and Washington and Colorado that, you really, I don't know, it just becomes usual, right? Like anything, you get used to it and kind of bog down. But when I first started going to Colorado, where they first legalized psychedelic mushrooms in Denver, where they first decriminalized them a couple of years ago, I got invited to this mushroom pop up. I really didn't know what it was or what I was getting into, and I was expecting maybe kind of like a farmer's market, but with psychedelic chocolate bars. But it was anything but. Rather, it was a bunch of people that were responsible for passing that law in Denver to decriminalize. And it was just a bunch of really young people sitting around talking like revolutionaries and talking about, how to change minds. And just like you said, the plant medicine is just a tool. It's not necessary for changing your mind, changing your habits, thinking differently, considering the perspective of others. But it is a really cool tool, and so it like attracts all these people that are really like-minded. And I think sometimes too, newcomers come to a mushroom conference and they expect it's going to be like a rave and everybody's tripping, but actually, they've got a lot of really smart, sober minds there looking to make meaningful change.
Wonderful. Revolutionaries, as you said, the crazy people, whether it's social change or entrepreneurs or whatever that overlap is. And what I'm getting from you is that there's the need to, like, if this is a path you want to go to, this entrepreneur lifestyle, to like increase your risk tolerance, right? Because there's all these factors into like, well, what should I be doing? And it seems like the average person kind of goes for the path of least resistance. And that's kind of comforting, but it's not very exciting. And also, like, even, when you mention the way like Gary Vee talks, a lot of these guys talk about, I'm going to start a company, give it my all. And then if things don't work out or go under, like, there's other opportunities coming along. So why limit yourself in that way? And so you mentioned a little bit there about like your start in this space. And so tell us about what you've built, what you've grown, what the struggles were along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I moved to Los Angeles in 2008. I graduated school right into the big economic recession and housing crisis, and I got a degree in writing. And in 2000, summer of 2008 was also the last writer's strike before this previous summer. So yeah, I mean, a lot of odds were against us, and my roommate and I, just when we were done at the end of the day with our writing assignments, we kind of joke and talk about starting a cannabis brand called I Can't Believe It's Pot Butter. And that would be an edibles line. And it was really just a joke and like a funny thing to talk about after we were done with work. But eventually, we're like, well, what if we just really tried this? And we're looking for an opportunity and started a big brand, got a big distribution throughout California. And then in 2010, legalization for recreational use was first going to be on the ballot in California. It ended up losing. It was a midterm election, but one of the things that was on the chopping block were edibles, because the regulatory bodies that were being formed, they understood like, well, this is going to be a lot of work to regulate cannabis, this whole new thing, but they weren't sure how to regulate edibles because food falls under the jurisdiction of the FDA. So originally the rumor was, well, maybe we're just going to ban edibles altogether, which would have been, the death nail for our company. So as young like 24-year-olds, we formed a trade association for edibles manufacturers, and we called up Steep Hill Labs. It was like the first lab in California, maybe the country, that was testing for the potency of THC and CBD and other cannabinoids found in cannabis. And we called them up and we said, hey, we want to get all the biggest edibles manufacturers in the state together and have us test like every batch of edibles so we can have clear labeling of the amount of THC or actives in a serving or in a full packaged product. Because previous to that, you go into a dispensary in California and, you want to buy a chocolate chip cookie and you're wondering, well, what's this going to do to me? And the strength or the dosage instructions would say like, this cookie is like 10 skull and crossbones strong, and it's a complete arbitrary unit of measurement. And consequently, like, everybody kind of who's ever had a cannabis edible, especially back in the day, has had some sort of experience where, they try to bite. They're like, oh, I'm not sure if this is working. Maybe this one's a dud or something. And, finish the edible and then you're way too high. And then so many people have told me like, well, that was my first and last experience with cannabis or with a cannabis edible. And so we wanted to have something that was really precise and predictable. And so that's why today, like, if you go into a dispensary, it doesn't have, some guess as to how much THC is in there, but a regulated system saying, there's 10 milligrams of THC per, peach watermelon gummy or whatever it is that you're getting. And so that was a big eye opener and like a first like real jump right into activism. Right, our company was only 18 months old and was already on the chopping block, and since then we realized, especially even at a young age, that we could really affect change and be leaders in a really young industry. And I think that's a lot where entrepreneurs are drawn to this space, because in the chaos of an emerging industry, almost like a country that's been overthrown and being rebuilt, there's a lot of opportunity to really stake your claim in a new industry that doesn't already have these behemoth monopolies dominating it.
Wonderful. And I mean, you shared so many cool lessons here, and just this kind of abstracted idea in general of like measurement, like, because I mean, you think about, like, measuring your money or your budget, or measuring your calories, or like the amount of time you spend, or your lead flow, like in all these situations where just like knowing your numbers, knowing what the measurement is so important. And you think, okay, if your kind of your vision is to legitimize marijuana and edibles, you're like, well, what's kind of a missing link there is the preciseness of it. And then what's also really cool here is that, well, a couple of things. Like, you showed this leadership, you brought people together in the same way that what really impressed me about iTunes when it first came out wasn't the technology, but it was that they got these record labels on board, right? They got everyone having the conversation, got everyone to agree. And then as far as you and kind of being this revolutionary here, you said, well, there's all these things that we could kind of, show activism for, but you're like, well, what's the current issue, right? What could be our current focus? What small achievable change could we affect? And you're like, well, it's this precise system measurement, and how do we make it happen? So that's some productivity right there. And so, as far as then what you've been navigating since then, like, what has that been journey like, and what struggles have there been since that bump in the road?
Oh yeah, I mean it's endless. But after that, we got together with a scientist out of Northern California and started a cannabis brand called Tetra Labs. And so then we were really creating some medicinal form factors. We were doing the THC soft gels, little like breath sprays, and then was one of the first companies to make put THC in a vaporizer. But when legalization was coming around in 2018, we navigated the sale and exit of our business, which was definitely a challenge. And in any business, it's very time consuming for someone who's going to purchase your company to feel confident and really vet your business. It's like an IRS audit, but maybe even stronger. That they really want to know every detail about your business. And oftentimes, you go down that road with a potential investor, and they turn over every stone, and it takes 6 months, and then ultimately they say, you know, we're not going to invest. So that's time consuming, frustrating. That a lot of people, I think, are sometimes fishing for information. Right? They want to get into the industry. They don't spend a dime on your company, but 6 months later they have a much better understanding of how your company functions and how businesses function in the industry. So I think it's a good test of your attitude and your headspace, right? And I think it applies to any industry, not just plant medicine. But as an entrepreneur, like, I really think that your job and your life is what you think it is. And so I try to really learn from every experience. Otherwise, I feel like I'm doomed to continue to repeat it. And sometimes too, especially my own personal experience, like with microdosing mushrooms, not even changing the actions of others or your situations, but just your perspective on it can really open up a way of seeing things that make you take a different course of action than if you were just focused on these entrepreneurs are just trying to leverage, gain information from me. One thing I really don't like to do is use a negative past experience and then project it onto a a brand new blank opportunity, which might not have anything to do with the way that a previous person acted or behaved. But I think that people can sometimes get into cycles by kind of predicting and projecting how something is going to go, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I just really try and assume the best in people, and and hope that it goes that way, and not let myself become jaded, because I think that's how you just feel old and worn down.
Right. That's how you have a lifestyle that's mid, as the kids call it, and that's the definition between pessimism and optimism. Right. Pessimism is this being stuck in the cycle, self-fulfilling prophecy. You think you know how something's going to go, so why even try? You end up self-sabotaging. Versus the optimism is like, okay, like you do have the wisdom, you're informed, but you try new things, you explore new perspectives, you like persist, you're flexible, you hit problems from different angles. That's what we all want to do. And especially in this situation you're describing, where it's hard enough to get a business up and running, but then to get a business up and running in one of these industries, it's like tough times 10. And then it's hard once your business is running to get it systematized and have it working with clean numbers. And it's even harder to get it clean enough where you can sell it and kind of and cash out. But to do it in this industry, times 10 again. And so you've definitely overcome a lot and figured some of these things out. And so as far as you achieving all this, and like I know you kind of mentioned a little bit of life advice there, but do you think is there like a number one secret to success for you, or those of your peers that have tried and crashed and burned versus what you've done? Like, do you think is there like a reason why you succeeded so well?
I mean, you just really gotta love it, and there's no substitute for it. I see a lot of people jump into these emerging industries with dollar signs in their eyes, and a love of money maybe, but not a love of the plant medicine. And I think that that's a foundation. You're right. You still got to get lucky and stay organized every step of the way. But without that passion for it, it's hard to find the motivation. And then also too, like I think one thing that has been really beneficial for us is a lot of entrepreneurs are spend a lot of time beating their head against the wall trying to come up with a good idea. I followed this book of just suggestion for business management called Traction. It's written by a guy named Gino Wickman, and one thing that just one of the principles that we really use from that book is just really opening the floor to ideas from everyone in your company. Someone could be sitting there, the boss trying to figure out how we're going to improve something, and the guy mopping the floor or packaging a product, is there every day too. They're not a machine. They have thoughts going on about the business, and so I found like tons of great ideas just by listening to the people that work with me, and not just based on their title, but just being open to the idea that somebody in our organization can help us solve any sort of problems, as long as we're willing to listen and, kind of keep an open mind about where that information is coming from.
Very nice. And that is exactly on brand with where we started in this conversation, with you saying about being open minded and thinking about these things in different ways. And your ideas might come from some of these other people. And I love those guys, the entrepreneurial operating system. And they have some like kind of revolutionary concepts. And so that's a kind of a great insight that you have different multiple brains working on a problem. You might even find a simpler solution than what you've been just trying to force down the pipeline and making it work. And one thing I want to kind of squeeze in here is like you mentioned this idea of the micro dosing mushrooms, and it sounds cool but also scary at the same time. So for someone like me who just has no knowledge of this, what is the micro dosing mushrooms idea about, and what can be accomplished with it?
Right. And I think that that's why I'm all about education and measuring actives, and really, having a scientific approach to these things, because I think at least for me, the more I understand something, the more knowledge I have about it, kind of eliminates the mystery and the fear, little by little. But what I've experienced and what I've found, like in the community of people that are microdosing mushrooms, one is that it actually scientifically is doing something to your brain. Well, two main things. One is called neurogenesis, which is like the formation of new brain cells, and it's not just psilocybin mushrooms that do this, by the way, but functional mushrooms as well. Just like CBD is a non-psychoactive compound found in cannabis and hemp, CBD is to THC as functional mushrooms are to psychedelic mushrooms. And I think that functional mushrooms like lion's mane and so on are really having a moment and a lot of interest in the public because of all the media and attention and celebrities talking about their own microdosing or psychedelic experiences. But so neurogenesis is the formation of new brain cells, and then neuroplasticity is forming new neural connections. And extreme cases on a lot of psychedelics, a new neural connection can be something like synesthesia, where people report being able to see music or taste color and having your senses crossed in ways that don't normally cross. But I think on a micro dosing level, it's more of like the poem from Robert Frost about like a path in the forest that then has two different ways that you can go. And for me, everything about change in oneself and habit just starts with awareness, and so the microdosing, I think, just kind of gives us almost like a meditative awareness of our thoughts and not identifying with our thoughts as much as just like seeing them as clouds passing across the sky, or kind of mixing metaphors, but that path in the forest, right? If every time we don't make a sale, we just like get down on ourselves and go down this same groove that we've kind of established in our brain, and a pattern that we have of thinking and acting, then that's going to continue to be the result, and then like a future series of events. But the more awareness we have that, like, wow, like if the guy doesn't make the sale, I maybe I wish I would have had the sale, but like me choosing to react is still my choice, and so uh, creating new habits just around things that don't serve us anymore, I think is why people are reporting, being happier, more gratitude for life, and these things, really start small and might seem minuscule, but I think they really compound to just better thinking, better self love, really.
I love it. Yeah, like do just like outside the box mental activity. And like you think about the behavior that you want to avoid, like the cycle, you think about like the old school, people being addicted to cigarettes. It's like it's you're a slave to it, right? Yeah, you're in a bad mood, you reach for the cigarette and it helps you a little bit, but then you're just in that cycle of like you feel bad, well, you jump to the drug. And so instead to use this new ways of thinking, as you said, like the self-examination, the self-help, really digging deep to some other problem, then now you can kind of like retake the control and ownership of your life and make these better and well-informed decisions. And that's where we all want to be. And so this is a great little kind of mini education about mushrooms and about the entrepreneurial process and just new ways we should possibly be thinking and acting. And so what's in store for the future for you and your new company? What are you excited about?
Yeah, MicroBoost is the name of our functional mushroom brand. We sell coffee, gummies, and functional mushroom soft gels. I mean, I'm just always excited about, because of the growing interest and investment that is going on into mushrooms. The more that we can really learn about it, you know, uh, there's a lot more interest in functional mushrooms now. So people are really studying, scientists, on what is it in these mushrooms that is affecting our brain, that is affecting our health. And I think just like the more information that gets out there, more people are going to be really excited about trying these things. And for me too, I just love learning from people that have, that know so much more than me, that are really passionate, that have been doing this for years, and seeing their research really get some credit and some admiration. So it's a never ending exploratory journey, and so I'm always just feel like I'm excited to be on the ride and have it with really good people that I like, smart, inspiring, creative, revolutionary people.
Very cool. And these are all attributes that we should aspire to, right? To always love learning and be seeking it out, and also seek the company of people who lift you up and are smart and have great ideas and are nice, and be a people person, be a networker. And so we've just covered so many important life and business lessons here. And as far as someone finding out more about you and MicroBoost and what you have going on, what are some next steps here? What are some URLs, calls to action?
Yeah, I mean, microboost.com, it's spelled with a Y, like mycology, MYCRO boost. Yeah, we have a lot of blogs on there about every different type of mushroom that we use, every product and formula that we have. And I also write for Rolling Stone about functional mushrooms, psychedelics, and all of the above. So if you Google Robert Johnson, Rolling Stone, mushrooms, or just Robert Johnson mushrooms, I have, I think, like 14 articles on Rolling Stone now about all different types of mushrooms. And you can reach me through our social media on Instagram at MicroBoost. People hear these podcasts, come up with great questions, or send me their own anecdotes about their experience with functional mushrooms, psychedelics, cannabis. I love making new friends, even if it's through these virtual digital worlds of somebody riding in their car listening to Roberts talk.
Right. Well, super cool. So this is inspiring and amazing. And as you said, people get a little bit of a hint, a taste of what's possible, what's happening, what's out there, what the revolution is, and then they're motivated from the two Roberts to go and check out MYCROBOOST.com, MicroBoost on social media, Google search Robert Johnson Rolling Stone, just to get yourself better educated and to see what people are doing, see what the crazy kids are up to these days as far as thinking better and being healthy and changing lives and living longer and being productive and everything that goes along with that. And so, as we wrap up and wind down our conversation here, Mr. Robert, you're a kind of a philosopher in a way, you're a writer, and so in the spirit of ending our conversation on a high motivational note, what do you have for us as far as like a quote or lesson? Is there anything that's just really stuck with you or that you can pass on to us that will really help us quote or lesson wise?
Yeah, I read a good one that I've been thinking about recently. I subscribe to the Atomic Habits newsletter. It comes every Thursday, and one thing that I think it was in last week's newsletter, he said, if you're making a change in your life, think about not just necessarily moving away from something that you're trying to get away from, but what are you moving towards? And it's the same exact action either way, but just with totally different like intention and motivation. And so that's something I've been thinking about a lot. We're always evolving and changing in our business. And so I again just kind of like those reframing your patterns, right? Like what are we moving towards? Not like what are we trying to get away from? Because then there you're just focusing on the negative, and maybe anything that you give energy to is going to grow.
Yeah, you need the carrot and the stick, and you can't just delete, you have to replace, right? You want to stop some bad habit or get something out of your life. Well, the other side of the equation is then what will fill that space. And so that is some deep stuff and definitely worth a lot more thinking, in addition to going to microboost.com. That's microboost with a Y, and also microboost on social media. Very enlightening speaking with you today, other Robert.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Great call. Glad to meet you.
All right, super cool.